Representative Cruz on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, while I don't think this bill is perfect in any way, I think it does advance the cause for the state of Louisiana and for the unborn. But I did want to clarify some language in it. After reading it, I wanted to make it clear that we want physicians in those cases where the life of the mother is at risk to try to preserve both lives. I personally am not aware of any times where an abortion was necessary to save the life of the mother, but I want to make it clear, try to save both. I just think that's common sense. So that's the first part, Amendment 1, and it also has it eliminated a paragraph right after that I was told by staff is already in the law that doesn't need to be repeated, and it talks about written documentation. So that's just actually a technical part. And the second part does attempt to better define what medically futile means. In those cases when it's a high degree of certainty that the baby will not make it to term, and the mother's going to, I guess, live with that the dread and the knowledge that the baby won't make it, that it's just clearly better spelled out how we're going to diagnose that and determine that. And the key part about it is we don't really want someone from an outpatient abortion clinic advising the mother on this. We want a doctor outside of that environment. So that's all that the Second Amendment does.
For a question on the amendment, Representative Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Cruz, for trying to provide a little clarity or an enlightenment on this particular area, because it's definitely an area that I'm concerned about as it relates to the mother's health, did you know. But my question to you is, in the first part of your amendment, how does the Hippocratic Oath come into play as it relates to doctors, and what is the standard? Do you have any indication as far as what that reasonableness might
Well,
be?
I just wanted to make clear, it says in the sentence here, the physician shall make reasonable medical efforts to preserve both the life of the mother and the child. So reasonable efforts means if it seems unreasonable and can't do both, well, then he or she's going to have to make a decision. But I just want to make it clear that, hey, try to do your best to save both.
Okay. But wouldn't you think that most physicians at this point are already exercising their practice under that particular?
I certainly would hope so.
Okay. And because, as you know, it could possibly be an instantaneous second. Things happen so quickly. So I was just trying to get a little clarity as far as that reasonable efforts per se.
Yeah, this doesn't restrict that. All it does is just trying to express the will of the legislature and the people that, hey, we want you to do the best you can to save both.
Okay. And we know that a lot of legislators have, attempted this. Does your amendment model itself after any other legislature, or is it something
It models itself a little bit after the Mississippi law that passed. Okay. So just trying to follow more what's already out there.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Cruz.
Thank you.
For a question on the amendment, Representative Marcel.
Representative Cruz,
Yes, ma'am.
you say that your amendment is going to assist the mother, and help me understand how that is. Are we not dealing with doctors who already know the rules, who are already trying to save the mother in cases where there's an emergency? I thought that was already a part of something that they do under the medical laws that they follow.
It certainly should be. This is just, the people have made it clear what they support, and we're just trying to make our intent known to them a little more clearly.
And so when you put an amendment on a bill that gives us a definition of medical futile, what is the intent there? I think we can all Google it.
That's actually a copy, and it cites the statute there, 2175.3.
But the question is, why is it necessary that you give us a definition of what it is? And I guess you answered it a little earlier. Did you say that we were mimicking Mississippi?
Believe it or not, yes.
Oh, I would like not to believe it. Did you know?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that definition is already in the bill. I'm just trying to make it clear.
Correct, but a lot of definitions are, did you know, in bills, and we don't go around putting amendments on bills just to define a term. And I just don't see the necessity in you giving us a definition because we all have Google.
Okay, I
Did you
appreciate
know?
that.
And so-
Oftentimes in law,
I mean, unless you just want the people to think that you're assisting them,
in
the women.
all the legislation we pass, we often define terms that people should
The-
know, but we make it more clear.
Typically, that's the author. And when you have a word like medical futile, we just kind of look it up and figure out what it means. But if you want the people to know in Louisiana that you're assisting them, if this is an attempt to do so, I think it's a failed attempt. Did you know?
Thank you.
For a question on the amendment, Representative Jones.
Representative, are you saying by virtue of the, let me go to Amendment 2 part first.
Okay.
You're taking out the definition of medically futile, which I've talked to some of the learned lawyers in here. That term is not even mentioned anywhere else in the bill, yet we're defining it. So you're taking that out of
No, sir.
the bill?
This
Well,
just
let me finish my
modifies
question.
it.
You're taking it out of the bill because it's covered in Section 2A, I think, where the threat of life to the mother is defined?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Medically futile Amendment 2 just changes the definition, modifies it a little bit. It doesn't take it out.
Okay, tell me how it modifies it.
It cites Statute 40-2173. It talks about not having an outpatient abortion facility doctor give the diagnosis and the judgment there. I mean, that's basically all it does. It takes the existing definition and adds a citation to another law and says, hey, we don't want the advice coming from an outpatient abortion facility physician.
So you have to get so what you're saying, there has to be a different physician to make that decision?
No, not at all.
I mean, a physician is a physician. What if that, I don't know this, but what if that physician has a private practice somewhere else? Are they not a doctor?
I'm not sure what you're saying here. What we don't want
I'm
is
not sure what you're saying.
I'm not sure what you're asking. What I'm trying to say is someone that advocates for abortion, we don't think should be the person advising someone on a bill that's trying to limit abortion. We're trying to emphasize the value of life. So someone from the side that's really trying to remove life and stop it early would not be an appropriate person to advise a person in a situation like this.
Is anything that you're trying to do in this amendment water down the woman's protection from saving her own life?
No, I don't believe so at all.
Are you sure? That wasn't
Yeah.
very convincing. No.
Yeah, I'm sure. My objective is to save the woman and the child.
Okay. On the first part, yeah, you got me messed up with the second answer because on the first part, I don't see any penalties. Have you applied any penalties in your amendment?
No.
Thank you very much.
For a question on the amendment, Representative Cox.
My question is real simple. Who gets priority? The mother or the baby?
Both do. That's the whole idea behind
there's times that listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. There's times when there is a choice to be made. And I would like to know where in your bill it says that who gets priority.
My amendment doesn't say that.
So
It says try to
basically,
save both.
trying to save both can die.
That's true. That's
But
why we
see-
have physicians like you spoke.
See, I'm all
today,
for the
everything.
bill, man, but when I'm having problems now is did you know what you're saying is beforehand, if that doctor said that it was the life of the mother was in stake, then the choice was made. And I agree, if they can save them, of course, did you know, that's okay. But if it comes to the point where I have to choose between my wife I'm here to tell you that the choice is going to be my wife. Now, that's what I was sitting here and I had to think about it like that, did you know? So, and I don't see that in what you're saying there. You complicated things, in my opinion. But, you know, who am I? I'm just an old country boy from North Louisiana.
Representative Cox, this assigns no priority whatsoever. It just makes it clear
I know,
that
but
both
you-
lives are valuable.
But now you're saying that, you know, it's just, I got to go try to save both. You know, we've just had some stuff that happened. And
Like was mentioned, that's part of the Hippocratic Oath, is try to save all life.
and that's true. But I'm as asking, I thought beforehand until you brought this, that if it was determined that then it was the life of the mother. And now that's what I'm saying, is making it complicated for me. Because I know in a split second, both lives could be lost. Or in a split second, one life can be saved. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For a question on the amendment, Representative Robert Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Cruz, and I don't know if you've talked to them or not, but the doctors, I guess, in the Louisiana State Medical Society are opposed to this bill. I'm wondering if you're bringing this amendment because that will withdraw their opposition. I don't know if you've talked to them or not.
I have heard they're actually in support of it in this form.
Oh, their website says that they're opposed to this bill, but this would alleviate that, is what you're telling me?
That's what I understand, but I'm not,
Do you know who you talked to over there so I could verify that?
no. I didn't personally speak to them.
You didn't? Do you know who did?
Well, I can't call them for testimony, but I believe the Louisiana Right to Life and the Family Forum, all that are
Okay.
parties to that.
I'll check with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Cruz, I'm trying to follow the necessity of this amendment in that we're deleting 21 lines of a bill and you're replacing them with, with fewer words. And the nature of your First Amendment, it changes significantly the content and context of what you're deleting. They're not the same. One requires written documentation and a lot of things in writing, and then what you replace it with is just the medical efforts that a physician needs to do. So
That actually wasn't part of anything I suggested. Staff, when reviewing this, thought, hey, we don't need that part in there. And I said, okay, fine. I mean, the point I wanted to emphasize is both lives are valuable. That's all I was looking to get out of that.
Okay, because again, so the problem that I have at this point is that a bill that's been thoroughly vetted, I'm assuming from the Senate all the way to the House floor, you're deleting a substantial amount of the language, and I think could really change it without a real thorough vetting of that. Did you know? Would you be okay with removing the deletion and adding your paragraph as a separate? And if you have a good explanation for it, I'm all ears.
I'm not, but at this point, since it seems to be confusing people, I'm willing to withdraw the amendment. It was very common sense, but I didn't mean to confuse anybody.
Well, you were deleting a lot of stuff that I think is nice to have in there. The written, documentation. You strip all that out.
If I had that in there, would the rest of it be fine to you? Because
I would not have as much concern.
okay.
Yep, thank you. So if you withdraw it, we can maybe work on it.
The gentleman withdraw the amendment.